Welcome to Talk2Brazil with Tom Reaoch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Welcome to Talk2Brazil, the business connection and the world's first English language internet radio program about business in Brazil, now in podcast format. A professional business network is made up of people we meet every day. I'm Tom Reaoch, an American in Brazil, and known as the King of Networking. I'm a speaker and also author on networking. I'm talking from the city of Campinas in the state of São Paulo, Brazil, so when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Today's guest is Marcelo Pereira de Carvalho, and he's talking to us today from the city of Piracicaba, also in the state of São Paulo. Marcelo and I are members of Vistage International, which is a CEO peer group. Marcelo is founder and CEO at AgriPoint, a company that provides qualified information for the dairy market in Brazil. And that's through many channels such as websites, symposiums, and consulting services. On the website MilkPoint, it's the largest think tank for the dairy sector in Brazil with over 100,000 subscribers. Its MilkPoint Mercado is a dairy market intelligence service, also has over 200 corporate customers. Marcelo has given more than 300 talks in 19 countries over the last 10 years on the Brazilian dairy market perspectives, world dairy trade and perspectives, supply chain management in the dairy sector, milk promotion, strategy, and dairy innovation. He's an agronomist with a master's degree in animal sciences and also an MBA. And more recently, Marcelo is the co-founder of AGTech Garage, a connection hub for AgTech startups and corporations, also located in Piracicaba. So hello, Marcelo, and welcome to Talk2Brazil.
Hello, Tom. It's a pleasure for me to talk to you in this morning.
And I'm really happy to see what you have done and how you've grown with the AgTech Garage. But for our listeners, I'd like you to explain. I know here Piracicaba is known as the agriculture Silicon Valley of Brazil. Why is that?
Well, Piracicaba has some interesting features. It has the largest university, agricultural university from Brazil, which is, of course, a starting point for research and for new products that can go to the market. Mm-hmm. It has also some relevant companies such as Raízen, which is a joint venture from Shell and Cosam in the sugarcane area.
Okay.
And so this naturally brought together startups and people interested in innovation. Mm-hmm. And about 3 years ago, 3 people actually start to think about creating a brand for the city,
right.
Which is the AgTech Valley. So they start to promote Piracicaba as the AgTech Valley, and that got a lot of press interest, mm-hmm. Major newspapers, websites featuring the city. The city is about 500,000 people, so it's a medium-sized city.
Right.
1 hour and a half from São Paulo, about 50 minutes from Campinas and its international airport, Viracopos.
Right.
So it's a place where we can really connect with the money, the business itself. Mm-hmm. After the brand was created, the AgTech Valley brand, some people started to think about moving to Piracicaba or starting innovation business connected to agriculture in Piracicaba. So that was the way it all started, mainly with an idea, and then the idea started to came through initiatives of the mainly the private sector, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. But also you mentioned the university. The university is obviously one of the drivers for professionals to go and stay in the area. So if you want to start up an agro-related business, you have people, you have trained people.
That's right. The university has a long way to go because traditionally in Brazil, the public universities, especially in the ag area or areas that are not really related to business, mm-hmm. they don't have a strong background in entrepreneurship in business management and things like that.
Right.
And also the routes to create new products, to start with the research and make them into viable products is something that a little bit bureaucratic. So there is a long way to drive innovation in the university. But the university, by the other side, is obviously aware that it needs to get involved in this movement.
Right.
Because all sectors, including the ag sector, is going through profound changes. So this impacts the curriculum, the subjects they study, how they see the profession and things like that. So we see that in the university, from one side, it needs to innovate, needs to rethink their job, and also they need to find new ways to fund, because the public university in Brazil is free and big debate, and the money that it needs it's quite significant.
Right.
The sources, the public sources, as you know, because our crisis, economic crisis, is not enough. So they need to find other ways of financing, and so innovation, connecting with the private sector are obvious ways to do that.
Right. Yeah, for our listeners, I'd like to help everybody remember Brazil historically has been known from the agricultural side for coffee and for sugar, right? And today you mentioned Reaoch, which is a joint venture with Shell. Brazil obviously is important in sugar, but it was also in Piracicaba, talking about the technical aspects, was fundamental in the development of sugar alcohol, and sugar as fuel in Brazil. So today we have that challenge within do we plant and make sugar? Do we plant and make fuel? And that all comes from technology.
Yes, the agricultural sector in Brazil and everything that connects to agriculture is a sector that it's kind of not immune, but it feels much less the economic crisis that general economy did.
Right.
So Brazil is strong in soybean, of course, in corn, in beef, in pork, in poultry, in sugarcane, as you mentioned. Dairy, Brazil is not an exporter, but it's the fourth largest producer in the world, and it's facing large transformations here. So agriculture is an area that drives a lot of attention, and it's something that's it's healthy, it's profitable.
Right.
There is investment, there is interest from investors and from producers. It's dynamic, so it's a good sector to be in Brazil. It's a strong sector, a good sector to be here.
No, and even you're talking about milk, and I remember from most of our conversations, many of our conversations in our Vistage group, and for our listeners, we generally talk about industries and companies. We visited Marcelo in his office in Piracicaba, and you've also mentioned many times of the transition from basic milk production, but also the downstream of yogurts and other products which have come from the basic milk, and that's all expanded, and that's all created consumption in Brazil. That's fantastic.
Yes, definitely, and also we're seeing the arrival of international companies to come to Brazil, and investment funds to invest in dairy industries for consolidation. So there is a quite dynamic scenario for the dairy also here in Brazil.
I'll talk a little bit about the garage, the AgTech garage. So what led you, first of all, what is the garage, and what led you to set up the AgTech garage?
Oh, that's interesting. When I saw this movement of AgTech Valley, I saw in the press. I mean, I'm in Piracicaba, but I didn't know about it. Then I saw in the press, and then I contacted the person that was involved with that, which is currently my business partner, José Tomé. I went to talk to him and said, "What is that? I mean, what do you do?
What's happening?"
Yeah, and I must tell you, he's someone that was working with open innovation. in the Sugarcane Technology Center for many years. And I confess you, I didn't understand anything he said because he was, yeah. I mean, he was like in another, he was already involved in that.
Right.
And then that's something that we see when people come to visit us. They have trouble in understanding what's the business model, why all of that. And that's something that with time people understand. And then we start to talk, and then he said, well, I would like to create another company because he already had a co-working. But I'd like to create a company that could put together corporations and ag startups. So we think there will be a movement. They had made a census with about 80 startups all over Brazil. Right. And this number would be growing, of course. And so he said, well, companies will need to connect with those startups because innovation is not anymore only inside the companies.
Right.
And a movement where access to cloud computing, to sensors at a cheap cost, to softwares that process information. So this is changing the landscape of business in every sector. So let's try to see what the startups are doing and connect them with the companies. So we start to do, a deeper survey on those startups. Today we have in our BI, in our virtual base, about 350 startups all over Brazil.
Wow.
Where we try to know what they're doing. Yeah.
But startups with focus on agriculture or not necessarily.
Yes, on agriculture or related areas.
Okay.
Some of them are logistics, but related to agriculture.
Right.
But in general, they do some kind of work or service for agriculture, involving software or hardware. Right? So we start to understand what they do, their size, the partners who are involved with, number of customers. And so we start to create a BI, and companies beginning to get interested in that BI and to have us helping them in finding startups that are relevant to their business.
Okay.
So they could maybe make a partnership, they could use as a supplier, and eventually they could buy the company. So we started in a virtual way, and companies like Cargill, John Deere, Arista, many others started to join us, to have access to this database and to make it easier to find relevant startups, and also to create a relationship, a networking of players in this area. So we operated that for about 2 years, 1 year and a half, growing, and then we found the necessity of having a physical space, a physical hub.
Okay.
Yeah,
because networking, I think that's part of networking. We have virtual networking. I have many virtual connections. But in the end, and in Brazil specifically, I see that the face-to-face networking generates better and more results. Do you feel that way?
Exactly. Totally. You need to be connected to people, and you need to be in a place where you have an influx of information, an influx of ideas. And when you are physically together, this is much better. So we need to have density, and when you have a physical hub, you have much more density. So we started to see how can I do, but we didn't have any money to invest, not enough money to invest in a building.
Right.
And then we found a beautiful old building, which happened to be part of the factory.
Right.
The person that started the university was a very rich man.
Right.
But this building, you need like $1.5 million to put it in a good condition. So we didn't have it. And then
just let me clarify for our audience. When you talk about an old building, you're actually mentioning an historical site in Piracicaba.
Yes, that historical site, connected with agriculture, of course, connected with the university in a very beautiful landscape near the river. So it was a fantastic place. But then reality came, and then they said, well, I don't have the money. And then, Yeah.
That's when the dream hits the ground, right?
Yes, that's right. But in this moment, people from Agua Santa, DI, which is a real estate company from the Ometo family that, of course, own part of Raizen, they heard about us and they said, I have a building. The building is empty, is a large building, and what do you want to do? And then we start to talk to them. We showed our project for them, and they said, okay, we can invest on that. We can do a build to suit and make it, ready for you to use and rent to you. Okay? So
great.
It's in a it's a modern neighborhood. In fact, they own the whole neighborhood because it used to be a farm.
Right.
So they have a nice school over there. They have the Raizen headquarters there. They have a small shopping center. They have a business office. They have the city technological center is there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, there is a university there. So I said, well, why not? Let's do it. And so we started to talk in June of last year. We signed the contract in October. In December, they started the building and the adaptation, and then in April we launched it. Okay, so
so we're relatively fresh in the launching right now.
Yes, we have like 3 months operating. We have 4 what we call innovation partners, which are companies that in each vertical they are the exclusive partner in the hub. Okay? We have Sicredi, which is a financial branch, like a bank, very strong in agriculture in Brazil. In fact, we have Bayer in agrochemicals. We have OCP from Morocco and fertilizers.
All right.
And we have Ouro Fino, which is an animal health company in Brazil. So these 4 companies are the starters. We hope we can attract other large players. And they use the hub as if the hub was theirs. They have the team there. They can use the meeting rooms. They have access to all the visitors. So it's a way for them to connect. We want to attract startups in an intensive connection program, so they will mentor startups that are relevant to them.
Great.
Okay, so that's the idea. Instead of them creating their own hub, they are in a multi-stakeholder hub, as we say. Okay.
And really attracting more, and as you said, you have the access to all of the different startups, and one thing attracts the other, and that's any basic startup concept, successful concepts. That's the way it goes.
Yes.
I congratulate you, because most successful startup that I've seen also start up without money. They're all looking for, but you have to have, and I'm going to go back to something you mentioned at the beginning, of having a business model, of understanding the business. Because here and on my other podcast, BBN Brazil podcast, I've interviewed many people in the area of startups, innovation. But what I've seen is what you mentioned at the very beginning about Piracicaba. Many startups are very technically oriented. They're looking inside to the technical side. But forget that they have to have a business, not that they have to have a business model. They need a business model that persons not in the business can understand. And part of my problem in trying to understand what people are trying to purvey is that I'm not a technical person. I'm not a farmer. But I understand business. So if I can't understand what the model is and where's the money, I get confused. Like you mentioned at the beginning, you didn't know what your partner was saying.
Yes.
I think that's true for many things. So to make a presentation to an investor or to a financial institution, that financial institution needs to understand where you're going with it. And I think what you have just set up there is fantastic, of helping both sides learn and understand each other.
Definitely. And they need to get a business mindset, which they don't have normally.
Right.
Most of them don't have. And what we see, for example, is when they are in our hub, they improve very fast. Because they do a lot of pitches, because we have a lot of visitors. For example, last week, we had a delegation from Korea. Investment fund, cooperation agency, and so we called 3 or 4 startups that are with us and said, well, do a 10-minute pitch for this group in English. So they have to do it, and sometimes the first one is terrible, but then second time they do it, it's much better, and so on. So you are involved in a place with a lot of density, and density is the key word. When we talk about open innovation, you have to have density. I mean, you cannot be alone, right?
That's true. That's true.
That's the point.
Well, I know you've been to Silicon Valley in the United States, and I know you've seen how to make pitches. And what you just said is very, very important from the Brazilian side. Brazilian startups need to understand how to make a pitch in 10 minutes, because somebody coming from as far away, Korea, China, wherever, 10 minutes for that person is a long time. And what he wants is the bottom line. So I think that's the fantastic learning part of being in a hub is what you just said, going through the cycle, making a mistake at the beginning, but understanding, and the essential thing of saying it in English.
Yes. And another interesting fact is that we have, for example, one sponsor, a partner, which is one of the largest law offices in Brazil, Tosini Freire, and so they help the startups. Sometimes we do meetings. The other day we had a meeting about mentoring, investing, employees and partners and so on. So they were speaking on that, and they have a special condition for startups because, of course, the startups cannot afford, but they are also interested in getting involved in this movement. So they are keen to help with their services. So we try to create really a good environment for everybody that is involved in that. It's something that we see that's very important.
No, I have no doubt that it's already successful. It's just going to be more successful in the future. But with all that, you haven't forgotten milk, have you? You still put milk and sugar in your coffee.
Yeah, that's my milking call, right?
So your milk point and the AgriPoint is the place to go also.
Yeah, we started 19 years ago as a website at the beginning of internet, I would say, at least here in Brazil. And we created a network of about 150,000 people. And we started to create other services for the dairy sector, for farmers and industry. And we are kind of hub also, virtual hub, but with physical products also. And but we also have a startup inside the company, which is a AgriPoint, which is a training, online training platform for companies and farmers and consultants, because we think agriculture will demand a lot of information, new technologies, new production systems, and so on. And people are, of course, in agriculture, they are in everywhere. So sometimes the people that are in Mato Grosso or Goiás don't have the access, for example, to the best information. Sometimes they may be distant, or Rondônia or so on. So we think that connection, online connection will increase. The need for information will increase. The complexity will increase. So we need to have a platform where people will be engaged in learning for his lifetime, lifetime learning. So we are working on that. It's growing. So we have, the 3 hats. I have the dairy hat, the AgriPoint hat, and the AgTech Garage hat. And
well, you're a lot of hats and one nice head, right?
Yes.
Well, Marcel, I want to thank you for coming to the end of our time. But it's fantastic. I know of the success of AgriPoint, and I know one of the things I just saw on your LinkedIn profile, you mentioned business survival in Brazil, and I think that's the part of the requirement for success in business. You need to survive, and you not only have survived, you're also creating these other opportunities. I want to commend you for that. And I hope to see you again and talk to you again more about this and any other ventures you're involved in, okay?
Well, thank you very much. Brazil is a difficult country, but it's a country that has a lot of dynamics, and it's a big market. So there are lots of opportunities in the country, and I hope I can meet you here in AgTech Garage. I mean, you're invited to visit us sometimes. We're only 80 kilometers away.
Now, what I do want to say, and I promise I'll do that in the future, not only visit you, but I want to generate a podcast inside AgTech Garage. How about that?
That's perfect. Excellent. We'll be very glad to do it.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
And we'll get that together. So thanks again for being part, and more success to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, everybody.
And I also want to thank our listeners and invite everyone to visit our website, which is Talk2Brazil.com, where you'll find today's interview with Marcelo Pereira de Carvalho, and also links to his LinkedIn profile, as well as AgriPoint and AgTech Garage. You can also find this and our previous shows of Talk2Brazil on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Himalaya, and many others. And thank you, our audience, and remind everyone that today's program was brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, and Focus MI specializes in market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. More about them, visit their site, which is focusmi.com. Remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Tom Reaoch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.